going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday afternoon with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Hebrewcheetah, also known as Rio. Also got the man himself, Jordan, in here. Jim, Takedown, Rodney, NY, Richard, Little Neck, John, Takedown, already said. Lila, I think I already said. Cody, Big Ed, Parabai, MN, Coach Sav, Ricky, Robert, Valentino. Yep, I think that's it. Gangrene Daniels. Appreciate every single one hanging out with us. Always love seeing all these names pop up. So many familiar faces. Again, all we ask, like button, subscribe button. Helps us out a ton. Free to do. Bring new shows on this channel almost every single day. I have to click this comment because I saw UFC. Plenty of time through halfway USCSA. Let's have a night. Let's have a night to write. I have been diving in deep. I was just telling Rio, the past 3 hours, I've been in the MMA streets, diving in. Beautiful pay-per-view card, big boy prizes, a lot of fun fights. 8 of the 12 expected to finish Rio. We aren't talking UFC, though. I know you do like it. Big Marley and I will be talking tomorrow, but talking some hoops. 7 games on DK, 8 games on FanDuel. Just my first look at it. 2 double-digit spreads. Totals all about the same besides, man, 253.5. OKC and Memphis. Any broad slate overview, anything you want to say before we soon dive into this 7-game?
No, not really. It's I feel like this has got to be the most injuries and big name injuries we've had in quite some time. It feels like we're in April right now for NBA. I mean, this is like, it's starting to get to that point of the season where these matchups and all that stuff doesn't matter. We're going to start to see some random guys come out of the G League we've never heard of before. But yeah, ton of value, not a ton of spend up options. I think the slate kind of looks a little straightforward. I don't really see too much of a mid-tier build. I think it's gonna be a lot of stars and scrubs. Going to be focusing a lot on that Utah-Washington game, and then the Dallas side. I mean, definitely got a lot to talk about with the Dallas stuff. Now that Kyrie's done for the year, but I mean, we're still waiting on some Memphis stuff. Still waiting on Jokic questionable tag, and then the Boston stuff. So there's a lot of moving pieces today.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first thing, again, we are sharing our partner optimizer over here, SaberSim, the best out there. You guys probably know the drill by now, but if you're not a member of SHIPIT Nation, don't know what you're doing, you just want content, no optimizer. If you're a brain player, I can say Wardo a million times. He's a brain player. If you're like him, I believe Parabai too. We just do have content if you want that. Many of you grandfathered in at a lower price. If you want optimizer, SaberSim, our core, 150 lineups and late swap. The best value, $30 more. Get you 350 more lineups with contest flashback to see what all the pros, what people are doing in all the sports. And then you do get SaberSim's projections and ownership for all 11 sports. Even if we don't offer it and SaberSim has it, you do get that as well for the starter pack. Definitely the best deal at $129. You get all of our content as well. If you're playing $1,000 a month, even more, I do think maybe checking out Contest Sims, the ultimate package, $297 now, will be $321. I believe it is like 2 weeks. The prices go up. The price will go up on all of these. You are grandfathered in at the lowest price when you get in. 5,000 lineups for that, and you do get detailed projection or stat projections. Like if you want to bet, see exactly what SaberSim, like how many minutes per game, shots per game, all that little stuff, you do get that as well. The main thing though, 5,000 lineups and the contest sims if you do want to give it a try. $297. Again, the starter is the best value, $129, $30 more than the core. We will be sharing SaberSim here. When Rio's talking, I'll be doing a little stuff behind the scenes, kind of how I'd approach it. Definitely, if you're a member, have the slate plan up, have the stone up. Rio put so much time into that. Again, core reports go up later from Ham, BJ, Rio. I'm on the cash report here. Showdown content as well. Solid night in the showdown streets for many yesterday. I should say we get right into it, Rio. Again, 7 games to talk about, 8 on FanDuel. Anything you want to say? Otherwise, I'll get right into it.
No, yeah, let's get right into it.
First game.
Let's get right into it.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right. First game of the night. Minnesota Timberwolves, 8-point favorites over the Charlotte Hornets. 226 total in this one. Injuries on the Charlotte side. No new injuries to talk about. Same cannot be said about Minnesota. Gobert and Conley are out. Julius Randle is questionable again. He was questionable yesterday. He played. They were also without Gobert yesterday. Man, Ants had a huge game a couple nights ago. Let me go to the filter here. Looking at the value, I always like sorting first by ownership. 2 players above 10% owned. I sort by value. only 2 players in the 5X range. Actually, what I do want to say real quick, when I pulled this up and sorted by value, this is kind of what you were saying about stars and scrubs. 3.2K, 4.1, 3K, 4.3, 5.1, 4.9, 3 set. Like, there is so much value down here. That is why jamming in the studs is very easy to do and makes sense on a slate like this. So that goes together with your broad slate overview. I like looking at like projections, ownership. It's really easy to see that right when you do pull up the optimizer. In this game, though, not much ownership in terms of point per dollar. Doesn't look like many great plays in this one. Touch on Randall if you have any lean on the Q tag, and then break down this one.
Yeah, it seems more likely that Randall sits tonight. Was questionable yesterday. It's just a management thing. Just doesn't really seem like a spot they really want to run him out there for a ton of minutes. I think they kind of give these younger guys more of a look. But yeah, it's a good spot for Minnesota for sure. Charlotte's been giving up a ton of threes in the second half of the season. They've just been awful. Their defense actually been not too bad. They're in the bottom 10, which isn't terrible in defensive rating, but their offense has been dead last post All-Star break. It just all these guys look kind of uninterested. Mark Williams playing a little bit better, but LaMelo just doesn't look very interested in basketball right now. And I don't blame him. This team is really, really bad right now. But the Minnesota side, I think there's 2 clear options tonight, and that's Naz and Ant Edwards. Both these guys are going to be taking a ton of threes. Naz has taken double-digit three-point attempts in 2 of his last 3 games. Centers have been killing the Hornets as of late. Their Hornets are bottom 3 to bottom 5 last 15 to 30 days in DVP versus centers. So really good spot for Naz with no Gobert, and I'm guessing no Randall. I think it's a lot better for Naz to be staggered away from Julius Randle because we talk about all the time, just a black hole on offense. And it's definitely showing. I mean, and the usage came down a lot last game. He only played 30 minutes. Obviously, they won pretty handedly, but I think he's a little bit closer to full tonight. And I would really want Randle out to get to Naz or to get to Anthony Edwards because he's averaging nearly 52 DK points per game without Randle this season. I don't really worry about too much defensively on the Charlotte side against Ant. I think he's just going to have too big of a role, especially taking away Mike Conley. That's kind of sneaky good for him as well. One guy that I do want to touch on really quickly because I'm starting to come around to him a little bit more, but Dante DiVincenzo at 5.8K. I know that he's been limited, hasn't played more than 27 minutes in his 4 games that he's been back, but a lot of those games were blowouts. So I don't know. Like he was probably trending for around 20 to 30 last game before the blowout. And now with no Mike Conley, he might sneak into the starting lineup. But he's been playing really, really well, and it's a really good matchup for him. So I kind of like him. I think he's a decent mid-tier option at 5.8K with the point guard, shooting guard eligibility, which is very, very strong tonight. So those would be my 3 guys. I think Jaden Daniels is just getting way, way too up there right now in price. And I don't think that I really want to mess with these younger guys. We're going to have a lot better value that we can feel pretty confident about in some of these later games. So really just Ant, Naz, and Dante. And then I guess if Randall's in, like he's cheap and is going to project really well, but I just don't think that he's really somebody I'm going to be looking to for upside tonight. We're going to need a lot of points from all of our positions, so probably be okay being underweight on Randall. The Charlotte side is pretty much a full fade. I think one guy that I'll probably try to get a handful of shares of is Mark Williams. There's been a lot of positive coach speak from their head coach about him, saying he's playing a lot better. And he was like on his way to being an absolute fantasy stud before he got traded and got injured, and then was kind of being reintegrated into the offense. So I think that Mark Williams is kind of turning things back around right now. He's probably the only guy that I'm going to be considering on Charlotte tonight. Just think they have enough bodies to make this kind of gross enough. So I think I just want to stay away from it.
Again, yeah, like if we unfilter everything and look at every team, look at some of these value. 1 in the 8s, a lot in the high 5s, some 6. You sort by this game, it's awful. Only 2 guys above 5. So again, when Rio's talking, I X'd out every single player in this game except these 5, and I capped Julius Randle. Again, that's assuming he plays. Then Rio wouldn't have nearly as much interest in Ant, so I'd lower that. And Naz, if Randall's out, he does like them a good bit. I always like Dante. Dante's one of my guys. Made me a lot of money at Nova. Went to the Bucks. He can get hot. He can put up points in bunches. He had what was it, 45 a couple nights ago? Yeah,
he's been playing really good.
43, 54, 52, 3 of his last 6. Yeah, there's definitely 27 minutes, 43. Usage looks good too. Yeah, let's hope Randall is out, though. We don't need that black hole taken away from these other 3 because, all these ownerships I still think would be in check for Dante, for Anthony Edwards, and for Naz. All have a lot of upside on their own for their prices. So I like it, and I like your Mark Williams call too. Low ownership, again, most of the plays in this game are spends. I don't think we really see much value in this one either, even if Randall is out. Not a game you want much of to start. I will say, too, 4 games that started at 7 Eastern, 1 game at 8 Eastern, 1 game at 9 Eastern, the last game at 9:30 Eastern. On the DK slate, there's a 10:30 Eastern game that is on FanDuel and Showdown content as well. All right, you mentioned from the top, this is a game that you have a lot of interest in. The Washington Wizards taking on your Utah Jazz. Jazz always underdogs, no surprise here. 5-point underdogs to the Wizards. 231.5 total in this one. On the Utah side, there's a reason you like this game, I take it. Laurie, Kessler, John Collins, Colin Sexton, and Jordan Clarkson all out. Keontae George is questionable, and that's an illness. Like, if the dude's really, really that sick, like, it doesn't matter how thin they are, he's not going to play. Man, tons of injury news on the Utah side, and that Keontae take's really big with how thin they are already. We will get that news before lock. Washington side, Jordan Poole is out. Rashawn Holmes is out. I was laughing at Underdog yesterday, like, forgot they were tanking. Jordan Poole out. What are you doing in this one? They forgot they were tanking, but they find themselves as 5-point favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I think both teams really want to lose tonight because it's big. I mean, the Jazz and Washington are right there. I mean, these are going to be the bottom.
Right away, do we hammer the over because there's no defense played? No one's missing on purpose. Is it baked into the line? I don't really bet too much. When I hear they both want to lose, these NBA players aren't going out missing on purpose. I know that for free. Is there a little less defense played?
I mean, the Jazz, they don't play defense, especially with this team. I don't know like the exact numbers, but like they have an insanely high defensive rating with when you take away like Kessler, Collins, Sexton, Clarkson, and Laurie. So there's for sure going to be points scored in here, and I think that both sides should be like the Wizards have a team, like they have NBA players. You know, they have Koulibaly, Middleton, Sarr, Marcus Smart, like all those guys are NBA caliber players, whereas the Jazz, I think they could struggle to score here. But yeah, I don't know in terms of betting the over. Yeah. I don't really do too much of that. The last time I bet was I got the OKC -9 before they ruled everybody out, and they still couldn't cover. I think me and Livingston in the Discord were sweating that. Lou Dort hit a 3 to make it close, but
betting's tough. We'll focus on DFS. I didn't know if you had any thoughts on 2 tanking teams, but yeah, a lot to talk about for DFS.
Yeah, for sure. And so obviously the Jazz being without all those guys is huge. You're seeing a ton of really solid projections and values on these guys. But the Keontae one I think is massive because the Jazz ruled out Jaden Springer. They just signed him to a 3-year deal. Got him in one of those trades, came over from Boston, I believe. But he was basically running the backup point guard behind Collier. You take him out and you take Keontae out, like their backup point guard is going to be Cody Williams. They were running a lot of handling through him, and he's just not like he's not a high usage guy. So they're like this could be the most minutes we see from Isaiah Collier all season long, and I think the role is going to be really good. Now the matchup could be tough because I don't know if it's going to be Koulibaly on him. I think it makes a little bit more sense to have Koulibaly on Sensabaugh, who's probably the best offensive player on the Jazz right now if Keontae were to be out. But either way, like Collier is going to have such a big role, and he honestly might play like 40 minutes tonight. So whatever number he comes in at ownership wise, like he's probably going to be a guy that I have a really, really large stance on if Keontae George were to miss. Now, if Keontae's in, Keontae looks like a really solid option. I think Collier would still be really good because they're probably going to have to play him 34 minutes even if Keontae were to be in. So those would be the 2 guys that I start with. And then Kyle Filipkowski, great matchup, been playing really well as of late. And the last couple games that he started, he went for 37 and then had that massive like 55-point outing a few games ago. He's only 5.5K, really good matchup against the Wizards. They're still dead last in DVP versus centers, so really good spot for Filipkowski. Bryce Sensabaugh, I checked his box score. He had 5 rebounds, or no, he had 2 rebounds last game, 5 turnovers, and ended up with exactly 0 fantasy points, which is quite impressive. But went 0 for 5 from the field. He's going to be getting a ton of offensive looks tonight, and I think the matchup could be difficult with Koulibaly on him, but I just don't think that it's going to matter too much because they probably are going to be running out a pretty tight rotation, 8 guys, I would imagine. If Svi Mikhailuk is not starting, he's probably not playing. And Oscar Tshiebwe should get those backup center minutes. It's probably not going to be more than 20, so I don't know if I would really be chasing that 37-point game. But it is a good matchup, and now he's not going to have Rashawn Holmes. On the other side, it should be Tristan Vukovic, so I don't really know if that's much of a boost for him or a negative. I don't really think either of those guys are very good defenders, but he'll get those backup center minutes. It's probably closer to 20. It could be less if Filipkowski is playing well. But one guy that I do think I have a little bit of interest in at no ownership, there's a couple guys in this game that are just getting little to no love. And I kind of think KJ Martin is decent at 4.1K. He is extremely low usage, has not looked good on the Jazz just because he's kind of been standing in the corner. But Will Hardy does like him. He has a lot of that like Aaron Gordon type play where he does those like back cuts, which could play really well here against a weak rim defense. And the Wizards are one of the worst transition defense in the league. So I think those are the two things that you want to see when you're playing or considering KJ Martin. So I think that he's kind of sneaking. He's been playing like 30 minutes every time that he's given the start. So I think that he'd be okay. But yeah, a ton of love for Collier and Filipkowski tonight for sure. And I think Sensabaugh is pretty good. On the Washington side, Koulibaly at 6K feels really solid. This is a perfect matchup for him with how bad the Jazz are with their transition defense. They're dead last in three-point and transition defense. They allow the most turnovers per game. Koulibaly is a more defensive-minded guy that's going to get a lot of his points in transition. So a lot to like there. Chris Middleton at 5.5K I think is okay. We've seen him have success only playing around 25 minutes, which should be what he's limited to tonight. A little bit tougher to bank on him putting up a fantasy score that you need at 5.5K, only seeing that many minutes. So I would prefer just to find the salary to get up to Koulibaly or just not play Middleton. I think Bub is pretty solid at 5.3K. He had a lot of his touch time has increased over the last couple starts. Went 5 for 15 from the field last game, but did shoot 4 for 8 from deep, which is good. Good to see against this matchup against Utah, who allows the most threes. Sar, I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on him because I'm a little bit not concerned, but he's played 2 games since coming back from the ankle injury. Played really well against Milwaukee, which was the last game before he got injured, and he's only played 26 and 25 minutes in the last 2 games. I don't think that Rashawn Holmes being out is really going to give him too much of a increase in minutes, and the matchup is really good, but I don't know. I mean, if he's only going to be limited to around like 25, 26 minutes, I think I'd get away from the ownership there. And then if you want to give your thoughts on that.
I kind of was going back and forth because he shot the ball 19 times against the Bucks in 25 minutes, 36% usage. If you're telling me, but the other games 19, 21, 20, which is solid, but I don't want that he's going to get ownership at a strong center position where you only can play 2 with a minutes cap on a slate where all the value is really good that you do need big boy scores. But man, if he's going to 25 minutes, if he has a 35% usage, double-digit shot attempts in the last 4, maybe an underweight stance. If you really think he's capped, I probably don't want to get overweight, especially at a center position with ownership. But there's no way I can fully fade that because man, that Bucks game, if that is what he's going to be doing, 35% usage. The problem is that was such an outlier game. It felt like I don't know if people were missing. I don't love it. The more I look at it, I don't love it. I don't like Middleton too for all the reasons you said. I put a max on him. I would much rather get to Bob, much rather get to Koulibaly, Keyshawn George, maybe even you haven't talked about them. But yeah, Middleton's my least favorite play.
Yeah. It's also just Sar is not super defensive minded, so I'd be okay if we were getting some of those spike games and steals, but he's not getting a ton of steals or blocks. So it's a little bit tougher. Also, you're wasting either a center or a util spot on Sar when you have Joe Val. We have I think Zach Edey's probably better. I'll talk about him later. Filipkowski, Jokic if he plays. So I don't know. I think that I'll probably be underweight on Sar. I think Keyshawn George is totally fine. He's been playing really well, playing a ton of minutes. Don't have anything negative to say there. Did he get listed on the injury report? No, he was questionable with the. Oh, he's in. Okay, so he's off. It was just a jaw contusion, so nothing really to worry about there. And then another guy on the Wizards side that I think is getting slightly overlooked, both Justin Champagnie and Corey Kispert. I think they're kind of interesting. Kispert, the just 3-and-D guy, kind of a sniper from 3. Good matchup for him. And Justin Champagnie just signed that 4-year deal. I liked him a lot more if Keyshawn George was more on the doubtful side of things. I think now with George being in, that probably hurts Champagnie a little bit. But he's still cheap, 3.9K, probably playing around 22 minutes tonight. Then Vucevic should get those backup center minutes, which is it could be around like 22 to 24 if Sarr is limited. So there's a ton to like about here in this game. I'm just trying to think through some groups. Like I definitely would be like on the Jazz side max 2 of Micah Potter, Shibwe, and Filipkowski. I think that might be the only thing I'd really consider. Like maybe max 2 of like Cody Williams, Juzang, and Sensabaugh. I doubt you're getting more than one of those guys. Washington side, I don't really. It's probably just max 1 of like Sarr and Vucevic because they're both only center eligible. So I don't really want to burn both of those spots on the 2 guys on the same team. That's probably it though. I definitely like a max 1 of the Kispert, George, Champagny grouping, I think.
Would you make any, and again, in 150, I don't even know if you ever do it, and I don't really either, but for a lot of people that are playing like 20 teams or less, or they're on the core pack or core plan where they only can build 150 teams, would you think about maybe like having a min 1 in this game, a min 2 in this game, anything like that? Like it's by far, again, you pull up just these 2 teams and you sort by value, you can't even see the screen. Like everyone's 5X and above. And again, you look at ownership, it's clear as day. Now, if you just run SaberSim anyway, you probably naturally will get that. But again, I like the less, if you're on the starter pack, even the core, 150 or 500 teams, I really like narrowing down what I'm telling the optimizer, anything you would do in that, or just like 10 teams or less, just 20 and less, not 150.
I think 20 and less for sure. I'd probably want one guy on each side. I don't think in 150 you need to go that far, just because there could be a lot of just systemic failure on the Jazz side offensively, where like if they don't hit that 112 implied total, it could look kind of bad. But I think it's 20 max and single entry, you're for sure getting one guy on each side of this game, maybe even 2.
For sure. I think if I was hand building, I'd probably go at least 2. If I had 4 in that game, I'd be fine with that as well. Yep, I got nothing more to add in that game. Definitely one of the best games of the night. And again, the first 4 do start at 7 Eastern. All right, let's keep it rolling. Next game on the slate, we have the Miami Heat taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Big favorites are the Cavs. The biggest on the slate actually at 12. 222 total in this one. Injury news, nothing on the Cavs side to talk about. For Miami, no Wiggins, no Jaquez, no Khalil Ware, and Tyler Hero is questionable. That's definitely big. That's also with an illness. Again, nothing on the Cavs side. Looking at ownership in this game, I mean, we go from not a great game to target to a phenomenal game to target to not a great game to target. Again, Heat implied for the lowest on the slate at 105 points. Cavs the biggest favorites at 12. Cavs are fully healthy. That always limits my interest a little bit there. On the Miami side, I don't know. I guess if Hero's out, that's when it gets a little interesting. If Hero's in, it's hard for me to really get to much of this game at all. Tell me where I'm wrong.
No, I think you're absolutely right. It does seem more likely that Hero's going to miss. They did call up a few of the G League guys. Isaiah Stevens got called up, and then Josh Christopher has been down in there pretty much the whole season. He's questionable right now. I thought that Keyshawn Johnson got upgraded, but that might have been last game. If Hero misses, like they still have enough bodies to fill things out. I don't even think that this would be a spot I really want to go overboard on because I don't think that it's much better than the Jazz or Washington side, especially when you consider the matchup, you consider the team total, like you said. I just think there's a lot of downside to the Heat tonight. I don't think they're going to be able to hang around even if Hero were to play. Cleveland is getting healthier with Evan Mobley off the injury report, just got a day off rest. I wouldn't be surprised if they rule somebody out later. I doubt they do. Got to keep the Twitter notifications on for Donovan Mitchell. But, I just think that Cleveland's probably going to run away with this game pretty quickly and easily. They're one of the best overall teams in the league. Net rating is one of the best in the league. So there's just I just don't really want to mess with this game. The Cleveland side becomes a lot harder to get to at these price tags, especially when you add Evan Mobley back into the mix. So probably just going to be max 1 on that side. And Miami, I'd be okay if I have 0.
I love it. I definitely agree with you. And again, easy way to do that, you can always just X everyone out. Otherwise, you can go to team stacks, and you can be like, I definitely don't want more. You said you don't even want 2 Cavs or Heat. So then you go there for 2 stack. And again, that means 2 players. Where's Miami? Right there. You just keep going 3, 4, etc. You guys get the point there. But that's another way.
Wondered how they sort the teams there when you do the team dice. It's just so random.
It is, yeah. But now that you say it, I can just click alphabetical or stuff like that. Yeah, what was that? Was that just so random? I was like, what? I didn't know what to look at. But you can sort it. Yeah, that's a very easy way. Instead of just making a group, no more than one, and clicking everything, you can just go right here into the team stacks. And then if you do want like minimum exposure to a certain game, I don't know exactly. I've never really used this thing. Like if you said 20%, what would that necessarily mean? Do you know, Rio? Like if I want 20% of this game.
So I think you'd get at least one guy from each team in 20% of your portfolio.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep it rolling. Next game on the slates. Not a great, we started bad game, I'll say. I'll call this an awful game and a great game. So bad game, great game, awful game. Going to this game, pretty big favorites are the Celtics at 9.5 over the Portland Trailblazers. We have a 224 total in this one. Injuries on the Portland side. Jeremy Grant is questionable. No Robert Williams. On the other side for Boston, Drew's doubtful. Actually, what am I talking about? Drew's doubtful. Porzingis is doubtful. Jaylen Brown and Tatum are questionable. Do you see this is the spot? Portland's been playing decent basketball. It is 9.5 point favorites are the Celtics. Is this a spot where they rest one of Brown or Tatum? Or because both Porzingis and Drew are both doubtful, you think they're going to play them? Obviously, really big news on the slate. We will get it before lock. But, yeah, without Drew, without Tatum, or without Drew, without Porzingis, if they were to miss one of Tatum or Brown, the other guy becomes a slam dunk play. And that's when the Whites, the Horfords, the Pritchards of the world become pretty good as well. Portland a little more healthy. Harder for me to get to that side a little bit. But, man, they're playing good ball.
Yeah, for sure. One of the best defensive teams post All-Star break. The Blazers are. Kind of funny that it coincides with DeAndre Ayton being ruled out, Jeremy Grant missing a ton of games. Yeah, then one of the historically best shot blockers in the league, Donovan Clingan, into the mix. All of a sudden, they become a really good defense. But yeah, they've been able to hang around against some really tough teams. They had that overtime loss against Cleveland the other day. So yeah, I think that they could possibly hang around here. As far as Boston resting guys, I honestly don't know. It would make sense. They do have a nationally televised game tomorrow. It's against the Sixers, so I don't think that it really matters too much. They should win each of these games pretty easily. But yeah, so we'll get that news before the slate locks. I don't know if they will rest them. They kind of haven't been resting guys, but I do think that it is a true questionable tag on Tatum because it's a new injury. It's the right shoulder impingement. He's normally been listed with a knee tendonitis thing. So this is a new listing. So yeah, there's a good tag or a good chance that one of those guys misses. As it stands right now for the Portland side, don't really love too much. If Jeremy Grant were to miss, I'm still kind of okay going back to Shaedon Sharpe, even at this elevated price tag. He's just been playing so well, and he's capable of playing 40-plus minutes. We've seen Chauncey Billups really tighten up the rotation in games that are close. So that could happen tonight, and I think Shaedon Sharpe just kind of has big upside regardless of matchup. He'd probably be the only guy that I'm looking to. It's an expensive tag on Anthony Simons. Denny at 6.6K, not really the type of spot that I really want to fire up Denny. Yeah, so it's probably just a max 1 on Portland tonight. And especially if Grant was in, then you could probably feel okay full fading it. There's probably still a little bit of upset in Clingan at 5.7K because he did get up to 29 last game, put up 41 DK points. Much softer matchup against Philly. Probably a lot of a better matchup too, going against Andre Drummond, who's not going to pull him away from the basket, whereas Al Horford and Luke Cornett they do have that floor stretching capability, so it would be a little bit harder for Clingan to stay on the court. But still, he does have that really elite per minute production at times, so he'd be a guy that I'm okay getting a few shares of. The Boston side, though, assuming these guys are in, I think Tatum is a very safe spend up option at 10K. Probably a little bit of a tougher matchup with Toumani Camara, who I've been on a while. He finally got rewarded. He's the defensive player of the month in the Western Conference. So yeah, a little bit of tougher spot for him, but he does see a 4% usage rate increase with Kristaps and Drew off the court this season. Has a pretty solid 14% rebounding rate, 27% assist percentage, 1.5 fantasy points per minute. So all those numbers are really solid, and he's probably going to get you 50 DraftKings points pretty safely. So he'd be a fine stand-up option. I don't think that there's a ton of upside in this matchup, but yeah, he's a very solid cash game play. Jaylen Brown, I think, actually does have the slightly better matchup. He should avoid Kamara if Jason Tatum were to be in, and the Blazers are bottom 7 transition defense this year. Definitely the spot where I like to fire up a guy like Jaylen Brown. He's at 1.27 fantasy points per minute with Drew and Kristaps off the court this season. So, I kind of like Brown a little bit better from the pricing standpoint. Derek White, a little bit too expensive. That would change a lot for sure if both Jaylen and Jason Tatum were to miss, because he'd see a huge increase in usage for sure in those minutes. And then Pritchard, I think, is kind of okay regardless. He does provide that spark off the bench. This could be a spot if Jaylen Brown were to miss, kind of a little bit more push and pull there between those guys because he'll take on a lot of usage in the second unit. But the Blazers are a lot worse against guards, specifically shooting guards, so not really Pritchard, but he's not your prototypical point guard. So I think that he's kind of okay regardless. Could be one of those spots where you just see him get that full fourth quarter run. And that's probably it. Like I don't think on this slate I'd really want to be playing a double-digit owned Al Horford when I think we're going to get better options later. I think we already have better options, but yeah, I just don't think that we're going to be looking to Al Horford for upside tonight.
You think Derek White's fine if just one of Brown or Tatum missed? Obviously both, like the whole slate kind of changes there, but just say one of them. I'd be surprised if they ruled both out.
Yeah, I would too. I think if one of those guys is out for sure. He was really cold for a lot of 2025, but kind of come back to life. He's made like 5+ threes in every game over the last 6. So yeah, I'd be okay going to Derek White. Kind of always the guy that you look to when one of those guys up top misses, because he just sees such a big increase in usage with those guys off the court.
Yep, I like it. Nothing really more for me to add. Again, when you're searching both teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys that we have in play there. It's more than the Cleveland-Miami game we had. Pretty much the same as the Charlotte-Minnesota, but it's clear as day. These first 4 games at lock at 7 Eastern, this is the game of the night for DFS. Shaden Sharp, he is absolutely a hooper, though. I know Colin mentioned it. He's getting no ownership on this slate. Yeah, I think if Grant was in, though, you said nothing there. Like, you wouldn't get to Sharp. If Grant's in, you need Grant out for the more minutes upside.
I think Sharp might be okay. I wouldn't be surprised if they do something weird with the starting lineup and take Denny out for Grant because they love Jeremy Grant for some reason. But yeah, I mean, it definitely makes things a little bit tougher getting to any of those guys in the 6K range if Jeremy Grant were to be in, because they play him so many minutes when he's available.
Yeah, probably a full fade for Portland if he's in. Again,
yeah.
We will get that news though. All right, let's keep it rolling. Next game on the slate. The Milwaukee Bucks, second biggest favorite on the slate at 11, taking on the Dallas Mavericks. 225.5 total. Injuries on this one. Dallas side, here we go. No Jaden Hardy, no Dante Exum, no PJ Washington, no Kyrie Irving. Kai Jones questionable, Caleb Martin doubtful. I mean, man, just a month ago you look at this squad and right now, absolutely insane. On the Bucks side, obviously Bobby's out, Trent's out, Pat Con is out. 11-point favorites for the Bucks. I mean, Dallas has nobody. Like, Giannis seems pretty strong to me, and I'm seeing 12% ownership. It is a back-to-back. He had a solid game. Dame started hot, got cold. 2 spends, though, that I'm seeing under 15% on a slate with a ton of value. Obviously, Dallas side probably going to be playing some of these guys, which makes me even like the Giannis's, the Dames even more at this ownership. So, yeah, I mean, an 11 points. If it's an 11-point game with 5 minutes left, Giannis and Dame are in the game. Like, you're getting that run. So that's how I look at it. What about how do you see it?
Yeah, basically the same. I was kind of surprised to see they were only favored by 10, 11 points. Just because things are going to be like Dallas is they're just void of like anybody that's talented right now. So it's really tough. Like, I just don't see how they're going to hang around. I don't get why the game total is so low. Like, I feel like Milwaukee should be able to put up a ton of points here pretty easily. So the thing that's kind of interesting with Dallas, though, so they're not capable of filling a roster spot until April 10th. So the team that they have right now is who they're going to be left with for the next month or so. So they're going to have to like rush back PJ. They're going to have to rush Caleb Martin back just to get more bodies available, because if Kai Jones were to miss, they're going to be down to 8 guys tonight. So it's gonna be really bad. I was surprised to see that Milwaukee didn't list either Giannis or Dame questionable. I kind of thought one of those guys had a chance
They
to
even
sit.
said they were playing. Like they said probable. I didn't
Yeah.
say playing. They said probable, and they ruled out Pat Con. So I was surprised too. I know Jordan mentioned it. That was weird.
Yeah, you got to give your star Pat Connaughton the night off, I guess. But the probable tag with Milwaukee, especially with Giannis, is like you kind of can treat that more questionable. They've done a lot of weird things with him, so don't be surprised later on, like throughout the day, he's downgraded questionable or just straight up gets ruled out. Like they've done that a lot of times before. I still kind of feel like somebody's going to sit. I just think that Milwaukee should be favored by more than 10 probably if those guys were to be out or in. But yeah, so matchup wise, like I have a lot of interest in Giannis for sure. He's going to have no resistance on the other side. The rim defense for Dallas has been basically dead last since they've lost Lively and Gafford and like all those guys. So yeah, no resistance on the interior, especially now that Kai Jones is questionable too, because like behind Dwight Powell, who's probably not capable of playing 20 plus minutes, like it's Omax Prosper and Kessler Edwards, who are like undersized power forwards probably. Like they just don't have anybody that's going to be able to protect the paint. So Giannis going to have a ton of points and a ton of easy buckets tonight. I think that Dallas does have decent guard defenders, so I'm a little bit less interested in Dame, especially coming off of the game. So I guess he got elbowed again. Clint Capella hit him with a good elbow and kind of threw his game off for the rest of the game. I don't think that's going to limit him much, but I don't know if the vision is like fully back yet. I would just probably get the money, get up to Giannis. That's going to be super easy to get to Giannis or Jokic tonight. I don't really have any interest in Kuzma with Giannis and Dame in. I think Brook Lopez is kind of sneaky at 5.9K. The Mavericks allow over 2 blocks per game against opposing bigs over the last month, and he's been playing really well actually. Pretty much in every game since Bobby Portis was suspended, he's top 30 DraftKings points and has a couple 40 balls missed in there. So I think Giannis for sure, top guy I'm looking to on Milwaukee. Then Brook Lopez and Dame are kind of just sprinkles. And then the Dallas side, I kind of wrote this in the slate plan like jokingly, but it is kind of true. Like my approach with Dallas is going to be to fade the older guys and the guys that suck. So that gets me off of Clay. Like there's no shot in playing Clay, especially coming in with ownership. There's no shot in playing Dwight Powell, no shot in playing Kessler Edwards. So that kind of leaves you with like Max Christie and Dinwiddie, I think are totally fine. Like they're going to have to play a ton of minutes. Those guys seem very safe. And Dinwiddie's going to have a huge role in his hand. Good matchup for guards against the Bucks. Najee Marshall is getting up there in price, nearly 6K. You're going to need close to 40 from him, which I don't know if he's capable with this team. Just probably not capable of scoring 120 points tonight. So I'd be okay getting off of Najee. And then the guys down low, like Omax, 3.7K, I think is reasonable. It should get a lot of those backup center minutes if Kai Jones were to miss. Maybe even he starts. And then Brandon Williams at 3K, I'd be okay getting to him. But definitely not a spot that I'm going to be going too overboard with. It's going to be really tough to get away from those, especially if Kai Jones misses, because they like that when a team has 8 bodies, it doesn't really matter what their team total is. You just want to get guys in that team.
That's kind of what I was going to say. People in chat like, no way I'm playing the Mavs, all this. I had a little more interest than like you even did with the Mavs. You made some good points, but like 9 bodies could be 8 bodies. No one above 6K. Like when you just say it like that in like 48 minutes, they're still implied for 106 points. Like it feels hard for not one of these guys to somewhat get there. But you did make a solid point. Like Najee now 5'9", Clay 5'4", Christie 5'2", Kai 5K. They're not like all 3K, 4K, where if they all get you like 30, the value is so good on this slate that like 30 might not be enough. Like the 5.8 X point per dollar might not be enough, whereas on some slates, you'll sign up for that any day. So, yeah, I initially had more interest in Dallas just because of how thin they were, but you made a lot of good points. And again, Rio didn't like Clay, Powell, Edwards, so I X'd him. He didn't love Najee Marshall, but he didn't like completely hate him like Clay. So instead of just Xing him in MME portfolio, I put him at 10%. We have him projected ownership at 25%. Little things like that I'm going through when Rio was talking. And again, for Giannis, I mean, no one. If Giannis plays and this game's somehow any bit close or he gets like 33 minutes, Giannis should have a million dunks in this game. Like he can get whatever he wants at will. So one of my favorite plays on the slate for sure. The problem is it is an hour after lock. If the Bucks do some weird stuff, I mean, you have spends in these later games. So I guess it's fine. As long as you didn't like just have Giannis. If you have like a 2v2, 3v3, or Giannis is in the util or something like that, there is pivots, spend up pivots that you can get to in the later games. But let's just hope that's not the case. They were listed as probable. All right, let's keep it rolling. Next game on the slate. 2 games left to talk about. Sacramento Kings taking on the Denver Nuggets. Denver is 6-point favorites, 235.5 total. Injuries on this one for the Kings side. No Sabonis or Malik Monk. Obviously, big news for the Denver side. Couple Q tags. Jokic is questionable. That's obviously important. Aaron Gordon, Peyton Watson, Zeke Naji, and Conchar. Conchar sounds a lot more right than Kankar, right?
Vlato Kankar, I think is how you pronounce it.
It is Kankar.
I think it's
Conchar. Yeah. I know Memphis is Conchar.
Yeah.
Maybe not him. All right, so he's pretty much irrelevant anyway. But Zeke, Watson, Aaron Gordon, Jokic, all questionable. No Monk, no Sabonis on the other side. Do you have a lean on Jokic? Like, obviously, if Jokic was ruled out, and he wasn't ruled out before this Bucks game, and you had Jokic on your squad, again, you have SGA as a pivot. Like, Jokic would probably be in the util spot. You're probably playing 2 centers. You can make it work, but I'd be very sad if I had a Jokic team and he got ruled out with only 2 games to work with. You're probably giving up a good amount of projection points, more than I want to. So do you have a lean there? Pretty important, and then break down like the Aaron Gordon stuff in this game.
Yeah, so I didn't see the injury, but apparently he rolled his ankle up pretty good. So yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like Sacramento or Denver should be favored by a little bit more than 6 with no Sabonis and no Malik Monk.
Yeah, I agree. And this is a good point. 39, 38, 39. Jokic is 3 of his last 4. He's polite, thinks he rests, but yeah, that's a good point. And if he did roll it pretty good, what? Yeah, I agree. Then that makes me like the Giannis stuff even more so.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I kind of agree with what he's saying. Like, it does make sense to get him a rest. Like, these teams are so far away in the standings that I don't think that it matters too much from a NBA standing standpoint. So I think that they could get away with resting Jokic tonight. But yeah, obviously you got to have multiple pieces in those late games if you are planning to play Jokic or planning to fade him. You're gonna have to have a plan in place there. But yeah, it's the highest total on the slate, I believe, or no, second highest.
No, next one.
Yeah, next one is the highest, but close spread. So I think this is one of the best games to attack in terms of like spend ups. Both teams not really playing great defensively on the year, but Sacramento's kind of been turning things around. They are second in post All-Star break in defensive rating, and Denver is bottom 10. So they've actually been getting kind of beat up a little bit on defense. Sacramento been a huge 3-point funnel all season long. Denver doesn't really have a ton of weaknesses, but they don't really do anything great either. So it's not, you can kind of just attack them wherever you want. But starting with the Sacramento side, yeah, no Malik Monk, no Sabonis. I think it's a spot where you probably want to get to one of LaVine or DeMar. I think you don't really have to like throw Joval in there because I think he's a great play regardless. But one of LaVine or DeMar should have a ton of usage tonight. We haven't really seen much of this situation yet because there's only been like a handful of games these guys have played together. But you can kind of guesstimate that both these guys are going to see a ton of usage and a ton of ball handling because you take away Monk, who I would consider more of a higher usage guy, and you're substituting him for a guy like Keon Ellis, who's not a high usage guy. Like that's really, really good for the outlook of LaVine and DeMar. So yeah, I like those guys a ton. I think I slightly favor LaVine just because I think that the ultimate ceiling case for him is a little bit better. Denver does give up some transition points at time. Mentioned it earlier. So I remember when I talked about the LaVine transition stuff. So that was with Sacramento that he was like leading the league in transition scoring. So it was a small sample, but still, if you meshed his averages of transition from Chicago and Sacramento, he's still in like the top 5 or top 10. So yeah, I think it's a really good spot for LaVine, especially if Aaron Gordon were to miss. That would make both these guys a lot better. But yeah, LaVine especially. So like both those guys, I think Joval is a great option here. And ownership, I think, is going to kind of be held in check here. There's a lot of strong center options. Like, this is what I mean. Like, I'd much rather find the roster construction and salary to play Joval over Sarr. Like, I'd much rather play Filkowski and Joval in my center and util spot than I would Sarr and somebody else. Just because I think that Jovel's ceiling case is way more appealing than Alex Sarr is tonight. And the numbers kind of back that up. So last game was his first spot start for Sabonis. He obviously played 30 minutes the game prior to that and had a really, really nice game. So he put up 33.75 DK points in that game, but was pacing for like 45, 46 if you just took his like per minute production. And there's a good chance that he's probably playing like 32 to 34, especially if Jokic is in. Like they're gonna need to match him up because I don't think they're gonna want to throw an undersized Trey Lyles or a younger guy like Isaac Jones in front of Jokic. So kind of think regardless, Jovel is very safe. The only downside for him is that Jokic does draw some fouls. And we've seen Jovel pick up a lot of fouls pretty quickly in games. But the ceiling case is very appealing for Jovel tonight. So I like him a ton. I never really have too much interest in Keegan Murray. He's been playing a little bit better. I don't know. Nothing really to say there. And Keon Ellis, I think, is okay at 4.1K. Should also be held in check. There's a lot of quote unquote better value options in these other games, but I think Keon Ellis, like we've seen him play a ton of minutes before. Like basically anybody that's starting for the Kings is going to play 30, like minimum 30, but probably closer to like 36. So if you penciled Keon in for like 34, 36, he would look like one of the best values on the slate and probably going to be under-owned in that case. On the Denver side, should have a ton of value to get up to Jokic, but like we mentioned, you're going to have a plan in place if he does get ruled out. He had one of his best games of the season against the Wizards earlier this year when Jovel was on the team, put up 90.5 DK points, had 56, 16, and 8. So, yeah, nothing negative to say about Jokic tonight. If you can play him, you should definitely play him and feel confident about having him in there. If he's out, then Jamal Murray gets a big boost. Although he hasn't been great this season in comparison to some of the seasons prior, only averaging 40.4 DraftKings points without Jokic this season. MPJ, kind of the same thing. He's averaging like right around 30 DraftKings points, but he does have a slightly more appealing ceiling at the price than Jamal Murray does because he did put up 48 DraftKings points in one of those games. Christian Braun coming off of a game where he played 47 minutes, only set out for 1 minute against the Celtics. I don't really know like why they did that out of nowhere, but probably not going to happen again here. But he'll still have a pretty large offensive workload if Jokic were to miss. And then Russ, I think, would probably be the best point per dollar option and floor ceiling combo option on the Nuggets if Jokic were to miss, because he's averaging 35 DraftKings points per game without Jokic, has a 48 DraftKings point outing and a 54 in there in 2 of those 6 games. So he would be my top option. And then, yeah, like I don't really know about the Aaron Gordon, Payne Watson, Najee stuff. Aaron Gordon's been dealing with a ton of injuries this season, so it makes sense to rest him, especially if Payne Watson is capable of returning. That would kind of like if Payne Watson gets upgraded, I think there's a good chance Gordon were to miss because I think that they can just slot him in there right away.
Good breakdown. I was so perplexed by this Fultz projection. So I was like diving in. I was like, man, we got to have him projected like he's starting. But I just look on like our SHIPIT.com projections, and we don't even have Fultz projected for anything. So I'm kind of confused. Like it says, I know SaberSim has him for 27.7, and I guess we just have the exact same. So I don't know if that's like we don't have a projection on them. So it just auto-populates to what SaberSim has. You're not playing Fultz, though, assuming like Ellis is starting like he usually is, right?
Yeah, I don't think like if we get the surprise Fultz starting, then I would for sure play him because he's cheap.
That's like what he's projected at. Like if he was starting like that, then you play Fultz. But assuming this is like a 13 or something like that, I mean, you can see he falls way down. And again, we don't even have a projected. So I guess it must be like if we don't have someone projected, but SaberSim does, and you take like it just won't show 0. It'll just show like whatever they haven't projected at, I guess. So
yeah,
I just wanted
I don't. Yeah, I think that's what it is because I'm looking on the site too. We don't have anything for him yet, but yeah, we'll definitely get that squared away.
Yeah, I'll send a message in chat in a sec when you're talking about this last game. Yeah, I just wanted so I manually bumped him down to 13. I don't want people just locking in Fultz seeing that. If he is starting, yeah, you can play all the Fultz in the world for sure. Expect it to be Keon Ellis, though. You're fine with Levine and DeRozan together, right? At those tags without –
Yeah.
All right, let's keep it rolling. Last game on the slates. By far the highest total on the slates. OKC Thunder, 8-point favorites over the Memphis Grizzlies, 253.5 total. Injuries on this one. I mean, like every single game, there's definitely injuries to talk about. No Chet for OKC. Aaron Wiggins is questionable. No Alex Caruso as well. Injuries for the Memphis side, man. I can't get over this hiccup. Jaren Jackson, everyone's favorite player, is out. Very disappointing 2 days ago. Literally, I don't know. You were in chat a little bit yesterday, Rio. Every single person I feel like was chirping Jaren Jackson. It ruined everyone. When the chalk gets injured right in the beginning of the game, it is not a fun night for many. But that's what we always preach. Bankroll management. There's always tomorrow, as long as you have the funds to keep playing. No Jaren Jackson. Questionable tags: Ja, Santi, Scottie Pippen, and Conchar. So last game of the night, again, on DraftKings, there is one other on FanDuel. There's not many spots you can be pivoting. Like, hopefully we get these Q tags before the Denver and Sacramento game at least. But do you have a lean on Ja, on Santi, on Scottie Pippen? Like, if Ja was randomly out, yeah, I mean, that'd be pretty important on a slate like this. But it's hard to, unless you have a strong lean, like it's hard for me to be, I don't even love Ja, I guess, anyway. He's fine. But if there is a true questionable tag, how do you play him? Do you think it is true, or it's just a precautionary thing?
Yeah, I don't know. So this was the shoulder injury that had him held out for pretty much all of last season. So I don't know if they're still dealing with some like residual, still dealing with some like residual stuff from that when he got the surgery. But I just thought that it was a maintenance thing. The last game, it was against it was the Hawks, I believe, that he sat out. So just like, I don't know, didn't seem like a spot that you needed to play him against an Eastern Conference opponent. Like I would assume, especially now with Jaren Jackson now, they probably want to get him back. But yeah, I don't know. I'll definitely have to see if there's anything on the beat writers, but I haven't really seen too much. They're usually pretty good at reporting that stuff. I think the spread would probably indicate that he's in. Like they'd probably be double-digit underdogs if he were to be out, like probably closer to like 11. I just don't think they'd be capable of hanging around without Jaren and Ja. So I kind of think he plays. Now, what that does for the rotation, it probably just makes these guys closer to unplayable. Like I think Desmond Bane is kind of okay regardless, just because he was great last game and has a really large role on his hands with Jaren Jackson out. But like the secondary guys we would have been considering, like the Luke Kennard, Scottie Pippen, who's also questionable, would probably just be completely out of play. Santi is also questionable. And yeah, they kind of need to get him back tonight for sure. Like no Jaren Jackson, he could slot in pretty easily. Kind of provides a similar style in terms of being able to stretch the floor. Obviously not the same defender, but his play style should match up really well with this OKC team. They've kind of always been a little bit more of a 3-point funnel. They take away the rim scoring. So I think Santi matches up here really well. And they probably run him up there pretty full. Like we saw him get to 37 against San Antonio, almost had a triple-double in that game. So yeah, I think Santi would be the guy I'm looking to on Memphis. I think we're kind of asking for a lot from Ja and Bane at their prices and in this matchup. And then Edey, I think, is pretty interesting. Another guy that I prefer over Alex Sarr at 4.9K. I think Jaren being out should solidify him in the starting lineup for sure, but should give him a lot higher of a minutes floor as well. And I think matchup-wise, it's a good spot for him. OKC's been pretty bad at rebounding this season. I think adding Hartenstein definitely helped them, but all in all, they're still one of the worst rebounding teams in the league. And same matchups that I was firing up Edey when he's going against bad rebounding teams like the Suns would be the same reasons I would do it here. So those probably just Santi and Edey for me. I'd be okay with Bane at 8K, but like I said, you're asking for a lot at an 8K tag if Ja were to be in. And then I just don't think there's really enough upside on those value pieces like Vince Williams and Brandon Clark. You're going to need some of those guys to get ruled out, like Ja and Scottie Pippen or Santi. The OKC side, a lot of interest in the top three guys. I mean, kind of in everybody in this team, especially when you consider that Aaron Wiggins was downgraded throughout the day. Already have an out tag on Chet, an out tag on Alex Caruso. So that should tighten things up in the secondary, like the Lou Dort, Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe range. I think Cason Wallace is probably the guy that stands out the best from those value pieces. He's been playing really good and should be back in starting lineup playing 30-plus minutes. Guards have been really good against Memphis this season, so don't mind Cason Wallace at all. But, yeah, I kind of think Shea is extremely good tonight. I mean, he's obviously been, MVP worthy this season, but looking at his numbers with Chet playing and with him out this season. So he's averaging 48.8 DK points with Chet in games with Chet this season. And you take Chet off, that goes all the way up to 56.2. So a huge boost in per minute production, huge boost in usage rates. Coming off a 70 DK point game against Houston. Yeah, I think this is a really good spot for Shea. So yeah, a ton of interest in him. Same thing for Jalen Williams. I mean, I like playing Jalen Williams in matchups against poor transition defenses, which Memphis is. They're bottom 3 in transition defense this season. So yeah, a lot to like about J-Dub. And then Hardenstein at 6.7K, I think is very good as well. Yeah, he's the rim defense has not been great for Memphis as of late, and definitely going to get a lot worse over the course of like the next week or two with Jaren Jackson likely out for a few weeks. So Hardenstein, pretty good spot here. And then just keep an eye on the Aaron Wiggins stuff. If he gets ruled out, that probably would make I don't really know how that's going to affect things too much. Like, probably gives a little bit more to Isaiah Joe, and then like a little bit more to Lou Dort. But
you ain't playing those dudes on the slate.
No, but I definitely am considering Case and Wallace.
Yeah. So how does Case and Wallace compare to? I'm gonna go sort by value some of the guards like Keon Ellis. You never even mentioned KPJ, so I assume better than that. Dinwiddie is 600 more. Christie's kind of in that range. I guess there's no real like direct like. I guess it'd be Keon Ellis. Like if you had to say Wallace or Ellis, who would you prefer?
I would go Ellis if he's starting, which I think he will be starting.
Yeah. I don't really got too much more to add. Yeah, I'm going to build out. I'm going to do 500 teams. Like most people probably had the starter pack. Made some adjustments there. I just want to see, and again, a lot changes when you do injury, like with new injuries come out, projections, a starting lineup changes that we don't expect. Like right there, if Tatum gets ruled out, this will all change. So I just want to see right now, after doing some max stuff, couple rules, actually just did one rule. You were talking too fast at some points, but what final thoughts on this slate when this is running? I just want to see kind of what Saberson's like.
I don't know. I think it's probably a decent spot to take some shots in like the lower owned values that are like there's a lot of unknown. Like I like throwing out some names. Like I guess Vukovic would be a guy. Like I think I mentioned like Corey Kispert. I think is worth some shots. KJ Martin a little bit. Definitely Keon Ellis. Like guys like that. I think it's a decent night to get away from some of the chalk. But I do think like Dinwiddie is pretty good chalk.
And you said for Peyton Pritchard, you were fine with Pritchard. It could be one of those games he gets like the whole fourth quarter. Obviously, gets even better and ownership follows if one of Brown, Tatum are out, but no Drew. You're good with him. Yeah,
for sure. Definitely, if Brown is out, then I think you play Pritchard with like full confidence. Like he's going to get a ton of shots up.
All right, so large slate. We're going to pretend it's in a flagship, so like 10,000 to 50,000 people. We're going to pretend that 50 lineups are going. Again, sorting by exposure with our 50 team. Well, that's not 50. Hold on. There we go. I had to go to all, not just guard. So you can see it. So this is by your exposure. So 34 of your 50 teams have Keon Ellis. What I like to do is sort it by leverage because that shows at projected ownership versus what we have. Like if you don't want to be 45% higher owned on Keon Ellis, you can always bump that down. Again, if you think he's 35% owned, though, this leverage column does change, and then his exposure updated a little bit as well. But like, just say you wanted 50% Keon Ellis, you go all the way down. You search for leverage. You didn't like too many of these guys, like Jokic. If you want a decent amount of Jokic, you can go like 25%. Mess around with that. If you want to individual, like team stacks, I don't want any 4 builds with Sacramento. You can always, and you can click on these right here to see exactly what team that is. Like, oh, that's a little too many for me. I don't want that. You can uncheck. If you want to like jam a spot a little more, like I like Washington. I want at least 3 Washington and more than just 4 lineups. You can do like 14%. Little things like that. Again, I do a lot of min-max stuff, looking at leverage, the ownership versus what I have, building a portfolio that way. If you're a hand builder that likes to use an optimizer, virtual hand build, be like, you know what? My core today is, heard some people like Flipkowski. I want Giannis, and I want Case and Wallace. Right there, you want those 3. You build 500 teams. This is who you have with that team. Down below, you can see projections, ownership as well. Rio, anything you want to add to that? Any final thoughts on the slate? I just want to show many people probably know you can upload your builds, contests. You upload your entries after you download it from DraftKings. If you do have contest sims, you can add the contest sim, right click, save settings. Otherwise, if you upload your entries, you can do that. Then it will allow you to run contest sims. Should. No, no, it's not. I thought I just added it. Flagship there. There you go. So then you can run it that way. And then instead of sorting by this, you'll be able to sort by ROI for the contest that you are running. Final thoughts, Rio? Actually, first, again, if you do want the Sims, you can see that $297. That will be going to $321. Allows you to build 5,000 teams in Sim. The best value, though, 500 teams a starter. You also get projections ownership for all the sports we offer, including others like CSGO, tennis, I believe. We have a Saber Sim portion in the Discord if you have any questions. Contest flashbacks big. The core package, $30 less. Get you 150 teams in late swap, which is huge in the NBA streets. Final thoughts for anything, Rio? The slate, or you already did that. Saber Sim. Otherwise, just say hi to the people, and then I'll get us on out of here.
I'll say hi and bye to the people. Hopefully everybody has a good night tonight in DFS and just in life in general.
Amen to that. Usually, hey, it's better if you have a good night in DFS. Usually life is a little better, but it's important to disconnect the two. You're not going to have a good night every day in DFS, so do not have that as 100% correlation to your real life. Get out, touch some grass, as some of the people like to say. Good luck tonight, everybody. NHL is also going on. Give that a try if you want. Saber Sim, huge for that. A stacking sport. If you like MLB coming up, you will like some NHL. PGA also locks in the morning. Check out DGen stream later. Check out Hoop and Tambo, who went live today, and all the content under PGA. Again, if you do want to join, chipitnation.com. Join the nation. You can find all of our packages. That's going to do it for us. Great stuff as always, Rio. For Rio, I'm Titletown. Good luck tonight. Be safe. Peace.